Family doesn't always mean loyalty. The words hung in the air of my silent apartment as I sealed the last envelope with a decisive press of my palm. 4 letters, 4 bombs of truth ticking their way through the postal system. My hands trembled slightly, but my resolve didn't waver. 20 years of silence, of swallowing anger, of playing the responsible daughter were ending today. The tracking app on my phone would alert me the moment each letter was delivered. Mother would receive hers first, then Dad, followed by Victoria and Quinn. By tomorrow evening, the foundations of our family myth would crumble like the sandcastles Victoria used to kick down when we were children, the ones I'd spend hours building while she ran free. My phone buzzed with yet another message from the family group chat. Mom, don't forget dinner this Friday. We're celebrating your bonus. Your treat, of course. I silenced the notification without responding. They had no idea what was coming. 20 years of being the family ATM, the emotional support, the responsible one, all while Victoria's mistakes were excused, Quinn's gambling was enabled, and my parents drained my accounts for their comforts. The letters contained every receipt, every bank statement, every broken promise, meticulously documented since I was 16. The postal worker had raised an eyebrow at my insistence on certified delivery. Need signatures for all of these? Yes, I'd replied. I need to know exactly when they received them. Now all I could do was wait and remember how I'd arrived at this breaking point. The fall, 3 weeks earlier, my life had imploded on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday. Miss Hall, please come to my office immediately. The text message from Fernando Eller, CEO of Morgan & Pierce, made my stomach drop. In 5 years at the investment firm, I'd never been summoned so abruptly. As I walked the long corridor to his office, my mind raced through possible scenarios: a surprise promotion, an emergency with a client account, perhaps. What I found instead was Fernando's stone-cold face and a security guard waiting by the door. Sit down, Isa, he said without preamble. Is everything okay? I asked, though clearly it wasn't. We received a disturbing call this morning. His fingers drummed on his desk, betraying the only sign of discomfort in his otherwise impassive demeanor. A woman claiming to be your sister informed us about your alleged substance abuse problem and frequent theft of office supplies. The room seemed to tilt sideways. What? She provided detailed accounts of witnessing you stealing company property and attending client meetings while intoxicated. He slid a paper across his desk. Given the severity of these allegations, we have no choice but to terminate your employment, effective immediately. My mind went blank with shock. Fernando, this is insane. I've never. My voice cracked. My sister Victoria. He nodded grimly. She seemed very concerned about your welfare. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone, calling Victoria. She answered on the third ring, her voice syrupy sweet. Hey sis, what's up? Why did you call my office? I demanded, my voice echoing in Fernando's silent office. Oh, that, she giggled. A little prank. Come on, you're always so serious about everything. Lighten up. A prank? I just got fired. Wait, what? No way. I thought they'd just give you a warning or something. Don't be dramatic. Fernando watched me with a mixture of pity and discomfort as I ended the call. I can prove she's lying. Check the security cameras. Talk to my colleagues. He cut me off. Regardless of the truth, this has created a liability issue. The board has made their decision. Security will escort you to clear your desk. Flashback to the pattern, walking past my colleagues' concerned faces, cardboard box in hand. I was transported back to my 10th birthday. Mom had promised a small party, nothing fancy, just a few friends from school. I'd been so excited it would be my first real birthday celebration. That morning, Victoria had fallen off her bike and scraped her knee. Nothing serious, but enough for my party to be canceled so Mom could focus on Victoria's needs. Instead of cake with friends, I spent the evening making get-well cards with my sister, who miraculously recovered in time to demand ice cream. That's just how Victoria is, Mom would always say. She's sensitive. You're the strong one, Isa. You can handle disappointment. And I did, again and again. When Victoria borrowed my car in college and crashed it, when she accidentally spilled coffee on my graduation thesis, when she showed up drunk to my awards ceremony and made a scene. I was always expected to understand, to forgive, to be the bigger person. The pattern was always the same. Victoria would do something destructive, my parents would minimize it, and I would be expected to clean up the mess. After all, I was the responsible one. At the apartment, back in my apartment, I sat on my couch staring at the family photo on my wall. Victoria beamed from the center as always, while I stood awkwardly at the edge, the golden child and the responsible one, roles we'd played since childhood. My phone rang. Mom, Isa honey, Victoria told me what happened. She said, not bothering with hello. You really should learn to take a joke better. She didn't mean any harm. Mom, I lost my job. Well, maybe it's for the best. You were working too hard anyway. Victoria says there's an opening at her friend's boutique. Wouldn't that be nice, working together? I pressed my fingers against my temples. I have a master's degree in business administration. Don't be snobby, dear. Family helps family. After hanging up, I opened my laptop and started updating my resume. My hands stopped shaking as determination replaced shock. Victoria had always gotten away with everything, from breaking my toys as kids to borrowing my car and crashing it in college. Our parents always dismissed her actions with, that's just how she is. My phone pinged again. Victoria, Mom says you're being dramatic. It's not like you can't find another job. Unless you're not as smart as you think you are. I stared at her message, something shifting inside me. All these years I'd swallowed my anger, played the bigger person, kept the peace. For what? To be sabotaged by my own sister? The new beginning. Tell me why you're interested in joining Stewart and Associates. Larry Ford leaned back in his chair, studying me across his mahogany desk. 2 weeks after Victoria's prank, I sat in an office twice the size of Fernando's, interviewing for a position that made my old job look entry-level. My former colleague, Sarah, had recommended me the moment she heard what happened. Honestly, I met his gaze. Because I want to prove something. Larry's eyebrow raised. Oh, I was fired from Morgan and Pierce due to false allegations. Instead of fighting it, I want to show them exactly what they lost. I pulled out my portfolio. These are the accounts I managed, their growth rates, and client satisfaction scores. He flipped through the pages, nodding slowly. Impressive. But why not pursue legal action? Because success is better than litigation, I smiled. Plus, I've heard Stewart and Associates is planning to target Morgan and Pierce's biggest client, Riverside Corp. I know their account inside out. Larry's eyes sparkled with interest. You've done your homework. Always do. He closed my portfolio. The position pays double what Morgan and Pierce offered, plus performance bonuses. When can you start? Flashback the family bank. As I walked out of Stewart and Associates, feeling lighter than I had in weeks, a memory surfaced. I was 16, working weekends at a local diner to save for college. I'd managed to put aside nearly $3,000, a fortune to me then. One evening, I came home to find Quinn, 14 at the time, sitting ashen-faced at the kitchen table with Mom and Dad. Isa, honey, Mom had said with that smile that always preceded bad news for me. Quinn has an amazing opportunity to attend this computer camp, but the deadline for payment is tomorrow. We're a little short. They'd taken my savings without asking, borrowed. They called it. Quinn would definitely pay me back once he got his first tech job. That was 12 years ago. The money never returned, and neither did an apology. The escalation. My phone buzzed with the family group chat exploding as usual. Mom, Quinn needs help with his car payments again. Everyone pitch in. Victoria, I'm broke and sorry, bro. Dad, your mother and I already helped last month. Quinn, come on guys, I'll pay everyone back. I was about to mute the chat again when a private message from Victoria popped up. Hey sis, heard you had a big interview today. Mom's worried you're aiming too high. Don't want you getting disappointed again. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard, then I typed. Actually, I got the job. Double my old salary. 3 dots appeared immediately. OMG, no way. That's amazing. Hey, random question. Could you help me with rent this month? Just until my commission comes through. Before I could respond, the group chat exploded again. Victoria, Issa got a new job. Much better pay. Quinn, seriously, sis, you're holding out on us. Dad, that's wonderful, sweetheart. Speaking of which, your mother and I are planning to renovate the kitchen. My phone rang. Quinn, hey superstar, he said smoothly. So about that car payment. Quinn, I haven't even started the job yet. Come on, you know I'm good for it. Remember when I covered for you that time you stayed out past curfew? We were teenagers, and you made me do your homework for a month in exchange. Details, details. Family helps family, right? I walked into my apartment, dropping my keys on the counter. Funny, where was that family spirit when Victoria got me fired? Ancient history. She feels terrible about that. Besides, it worked out better for you, didn't it? So really, you should be thanking her. I nearly choked. Thanking her? Yeah, see? Everything happens for a reason. So, about that loan. I'll think about it, I said, ending the call. The decision, my laptop sat open on my coffee table, still displaying the email confirmation from Stewart and Associates. Next to it lay a notebook where I'd started drafting those letters, one for each family member, letters I'd been too scared to send. My phone buzzed again. Victoria had sent a screenshot of my new company to the group chat. Victoria, found Issa's new workplace. So fancy. Guess all those hours being a workaholic paid off. Mom, don't be mean, dear. Issa's just lucky. Quinn, lucky enough to help her favorite brother? Dad, we should celebrate. Issa can treat us to dinner at that new steakhouse downtown. I picked up my pen and pulled the notebook closer. The first letter was addressed to Victoria. Dear sister, it began. Let me tell you about luck. My hand moved faster now, the words flowing easily. They thought my success meant their meal ticket had arrived? They were about to learn otherwise. Every demand for money, every dismissive comment, every backhanded compliment, it was all going into these letters. The confrontation part 1. Just a small loan, sweetheart, Mom said, stirring her coffee at our weekly breakfast meetup. Your father and I have always supported you. I nearly choked on my avocado toast. Supported me? Like when Victoria crashed my car and you made me share hers instead of making her replace it? Ancient history, Mom waved her hand dismissively. Besides, you were always so rigid about your things. Sharing is caring. Mom, I was working 2 jobs to pay for that car. And look how that taught you responsibility. Now you're successful, she beamed. Speaking of success, the kitchen renovation would only be about $20,000. My coffee turned bitter in my mouth. That's a lot of money. Well, Victoria can't help. She's an artist. You know how unstable that income is. And Quinn has his car payments. I set my cup down harder than necessary. What about my student loans? Oh, honey, Mom patted my hand. You chose to go to that expensive university. Nobody forced you. The memory hit me like a slap. 17-year-old me clutching my acceptance letter while Mom consoled a crying Victoria who hadn't gotten in. Maybe you should go to community college first, Mom had suggested. Keep Victoria company. My phone buzzed. Quinn. Hey sis, about that car payment. Getting some nasty calls from the bank. I turned my phone face down. Mom, I need to get to work. Already? But we haven't discussed the kitchen. Your father's getting estimates this afternoon. Flashback the loan. Quinn hadn't always been this way. When we were kids, he was sweet, eager to please. But our parents created this dynamic Victoria, the fragile artist who needed protection, me the workhorse who could handle anything, and Quinn the charming boy who just needed a little help until he found his footing. I remembered the day he came to me, desperate and ashamed, 5 years ago. His eyes were red-rimmed, his hands shaking as he confessed to gambling away his first tech job salary. I'll fix this, Issa. I swear. Just help me this once. Of course I helped. And the next time. And the time after that. Each time was the last time. each loan was going to be paid back immediately. I'd since stopped calling them loans and started calling them what they were: donations to the family bank of enabling Quinn's problems. The confrontation apart at the office, Larry stopped by my desk. Isa, the Riverside Court meeting went better than expected. They're considering moving their entire portfolio to us. That's fantastic. It's all thanks to your insight. There's a substantial bonus coming your way. My computer dinged with an email from Victoria. Hey sis, heard about your bonus from mom. She ran into Larry's wife at yoga. Quick favor, my art supply store is having a massive sale. Could really use some sister support. I opened my drawer, pulling out the letters I brought to work. Each one contained years of carefully documented incidents, dates, amounts borrowed and never repaid. Victoria's was the thickest. My phone rang. Dad, Princess. Great news. Contractor can start the kitchen next week. Just need you to transfer the deposit. Dad, I haven't agreed to. Your mother said you were on board. We've already picked out the fixtures. Premium stuff only, the best for our dream kitchen. Gotta run. Contractor needs the deposit by Friday. Love you, Princess. I hung up and stared at the letters. Another message popped up from Quinn. Banks threatening repossession. Need $3K by tomorrow. You're my only hope. Memories flooded back. Quinn borrowing my college fund for his failed startup. Victoria accidentally spilling wine on my interview suit, then offering her old cocktail dress as a replacement. Mom and Dad remortgaging the house to fund Victoria's art gallery, which closed 3 months later. Flashback, the breaking point. There was a moment, 6 months ago, that should have been my breaking point. I'd been nominated for an industry award recognition for years of hard work. The ceremony was important enough that I'd bought tickets for the whole family. Victoria had shown up late and tipsy, wearing a dress that upstaged mine. During my acceptance speech, her phone rang loudly, and she answered it. Mom shushed me when I tried to address it later. She's going through a tough time with her latest breakup, Mom had whispered. Can't you just be happy with your award and not make everything about you? I'd swallowed my anger then, as I always did. But that night, I started keeping records, every text, every loan, every broken promise. Some part of me knew this day would come. The letters. Larry appeared again. Isa, you okay? Just family stuff? I nodded. Nothing important. He nodded knowingly. Sometimes the hardest business decisions involve family. Remember what I always say. Professional boundaries protect personal relationships. Professional boundaries protect personal relationships. I quoted exactly. He smiled. By the way, the bonus hits your account tomorrow. After he left, I opened my email and created a new folder labeled Family Financial Requests. I forwarded every demanding message, every guilt trip, every manipulation tactic. Each one went into the folder, dated and categorized. My phone buzzed again. The family group chat was discussing dinner plans at an expensive restaurant, naturally on my tab. Victoria. Obviously Isa is buying. Time to celebrate her bonus. Mom. Perfect. I'll make reservations for 8. Bringing your father's girlfriend too. Quinn. Count me in, sis. Can you spot me some cash for a new shirt? Can't show up looking broke. I picked up the letters again, adding a final paragraph to each one. Then I pulled out fresh envelopes, addressing them carefully. Victoria's art supply store receipt from last month for designer handbags, not art supplies. Quinn's bank statements showing gambling transactions. Mom's yoga membership cost more than my monthly student loan payment. Everything would be exposed. Every lie, every manipulation, every double standard. My hand shook slightly as I sealed the last envelope. Part of me wanted to shred them all, keep the peace, play my assigned role. But as I looked at my phone, still buzzing with entitled demands, I knew peace had always been an illusion. I stood up, letters in hand, ready to walk to the mailroom. They wanted my money? They'd get my truth instead. Sometimes the most expensive thing in life is letting people take you for granted. I was done paying that price. The aftermath. The postal worker raised an eyebrow at my stack of certified letters. Need signatures for delivery? Yes, I said firmly. I need to know exactly when they receive these. Back at my desk, I stared at the tracking numbers, my heart racing. 4 letters, 4 bombs of truth taking their way through the postal system. My phone lit up. Victoria calling. Hey sis. Her voice dripped honey. About dinner tonight. I can't make it. I kept my voice neutral. Deadline at work. But mom already made reservations. Everyone's coming. Quinn's bringing his new girlfriend, dad's golf buddies. All these people were invited to celebrate my bonus, I said. But nobody asked me first. Don't be difficult, Victoria huffed. Family celebrates together. Oh, and could you transfer me some cash before dinner? My card's being weird. I checked the tracking numbers again. Her letter would arrive tomorrow. Sorry, Vic. I've got a meeting. I hung up before she could protest. Larry stopped by my desk. Everything all right? You seem distracted. Just handling some long overdue correspondence. He nodded thoughtfully. The Riverside Corp transfer is almost complete. Fernando from Morgan and Pierce called this morning, quite upset about losing their biggest client. I smiled despite myself. Did he mention anything else? Just that letting you go was their biggest mistake this year. Larry grinned. I didn't tell him it was their biggest mistake this decade. My computer pinged with an email from Quinn. Sis, emergency. Banks threatening legal action. Need help now. Also, can't make dinner unless you spot me some cash for a new shirt. Don't tell mom. I opened my drafts folder and began typing. Dear Quinn, can't make dinner. Dealing with my own financial obligations. Student loans, rent, basic adult responsibilities. You should try it sometime. Isa. My phone buzzed. Mom. Isa Marie. What's this about not coming to dinner? I already told everyone about your bonus. Mom, you can't just. Victoria's devastated. She bought a new dress specially. With what money? She just told me her card wasn't working. That's different. She's creative with money. You're the responsible one. I checked the tracking numbers again. Mom's letter was already out for delivery. I have to go, Mom. Big meeting. Don't you dare hang up on. I ended the call and switched my phone to silent. The first letter would be delivered any minute now. Opening my desk drawer, I pulled out copies of everything I'd sent. Bank statements showing Quinn's gambling debts, screenshots of Victoria's luxury purchases while claiming poverty, parents' credit card statements revealing their reckless spending. My computer dinged again. Dad, your mother's upset. Call her immediately. Peace contractor needs that deposit today. I drafted another email. Dear Dad, no deposit, no dinner, no more enabling. Check your mailbox. Isa. Larry appeared again. Isa, got a minute? Board wants to discuss your promotion. Promotion? The Riverside account's just the beginning. We're thinking junior partner. My phone screen lit up with texts. Mom, Isa Marie, answer your phone. Quinn, bank sending collectors. Victoria, can't believe you're bailing on dinner. So selfish. Dad, called contractor, he's waiting. I silenced them all and followed Larry to the conference room. Behind me, my computer showed the tracking update I'd been waiting for. Delivered, signed by Hazel Hall. The first letter had arrived. The explosion. I sat through the board meeting in a strange calm, discussing strategy and growth projections, while imagining Mom opening that envelope. By now she'd be reading about every time she dismissed my achievements, every double standard, every manipulation. My phone kept lighting up, but I didn't check it. Let them read, let them realize, let them face their own reflections in the mirror I'd crafted from years of receipts, screenshots, and carefully documented lies. Back at my desk, I had 37 missed calls and counting. The second letter would arrive within hours. Dad's turn to face the truth. Larry stopped by one last time. Everything okay? Your phone's been buzzing nonstop. Just family learning some hard lessons about accountability. He nodded sagely. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do is stop protecting people from the consequences of their own actions. I glanced at my silent phone, imagining the chaos unfolding at my parents' house. Tomorrow Victoria and Quinn would get their letters. The full set would be complete. The truth was in the mail, and there was no returning to sender. The Confrontation, Part 3. The first voicemail came at 6:43 a.m. Mom's voice trembled with rage. How dare you? How dare you keep records like some accountant? We're your family. I deleted it and sipped my coffee, watching the sunrise from my apartment window. The second letter would reach Dad any minute now. My phone buzzed again. Quinn this time. Mom's having a meltdown. What did you do? Before I could respond, Victoria's message popped up. OMG, you're actually insane. Mom's crying. Dad's not speaking. Is this because I didn't get you a birthday present last year? So petty. The tracking app updated. Delivered, signed by Axel Hall. My office phone rang. Larry's name flashed on the display. Isa, your mother's in the lobby. My stomach dropped. Should I have security escort her out? No, I'll handle it. I grabbed my laptop and headed downstairs. Mom stood in the middle of the lobby, clutching my letter, her yoga outfit clashing with the corporate atmosphere. You ungrateful child. Mom, this is my workplace. Oh, now you're embarrassed? After sending this manifesto of lies, I guided her toward a quiet corner. Everything in that letter is true. I have proof. Proof? You kept receipts from 10 years ago? Who does that? Someone who knew this day would come. Your father can't even look at me 23 years of marriage, and he never knew about the secret credit cards or the second mortgage you took out for Victoria's gallery. Her face reddened. She needed that opportunity. And I needed my college fund that Quinn gambled away. Funny how my needs never seemed urgent enough. We raised you better than this, she hissed. Family doesn't keep score. No, family doesn't play favorites. Family doesn't gaslight. My phone buzzed. Dad's message appeared. Your mother's hysterical. Fix this now. Another notification. Victoria's letter had been delivered. Mom's phone chimed. She checked it and went pale. Victoria's threatening to move to Europe. See what you've done. Let me guess. She needs money for the plane ticket? She's sensitive, creative. You've always been jealous of her spirit. Security was watching us now. I lowered my voice. Mom, go home. Read the letter again. Really read it. I will not, Mrs. Hall. Larry appeared beside us. I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to leave. We're about to start a board meeting. Mom straightened her yoga pants. Of course, my daughter's very important now. Too important for family. As security escorted her out, my phone exploded with notifications. Victoria had posted on social media. Some people can't handle other success. Booking a one-way ticket to Paris. Need support from real family. Quinn replied immediately. This is messed up, sis, but since you're burning bridges, can I get that loan before you go nuclear? Bank's seriously on my case. Dad sent a simple text. Your mother's blood pressure is your responsibility now. I walked back to my office, hands shaking slightly. Larry followed. Family drama? Something like that. Take the afternoon off if you need it. But first, he smiled. The board approved your promotion. Junior partner, effective immediately. My phone buzzed again. Victoria. OMG, just got your psycho letter. Recording everything for my lawyer. Hope you're happy now that you've destroyed this family. Please still need help with art supplies if you're done being crazy. I declined the call and turned to Larry. Actually, I think I'll stay. We have that strategy meeting at 2, right? He nodded approvingly. That's why you're partner material. You know how to prioritize. Flashback, the pattern begins. Back at my desk, I opened my email to find 67 new messages from family members. Subject lines ranged from "How could you?" to "Before you cut me off completely." The final tracking update appeared. Quinn's letter had arrived. As the notifications continued to flood in, I remembered a day from my childhood that seemed to set the pattern for everything that followed. I was 7, Victoria 5. I'd received a perfect score on a math test and couldn't wait to show my parents. But when I got home, Victoria had painted a picture of our house childish stick figures and a lopsided roof. Mom and Dad were fawning over it, already talking about framing it. Mom, look, I'd said, pulling out my test. In a minute, Isa. Look what your sister created. She's so talented. That minute never came. My test was eventually signed without comment and returned to school. Victoria's painting hung in the living room for years. It wasn't that they didn't love me. They did. I knew that. But somewhere along the way, roles were assigned. Victoria was the special one who needed attention, Quinn was the baby who needed help, and I was the one who could handle myself until I couldn't. The reckoning. Within minutes, the family group chat exploded. Victoria. She exposed everything. My shopping. Quinn's gambling. Mom's secret cards. Quinn. Those bank statements were private. This is illegal. Mom. We need to meet, all of us, tonight. Dad agreed. Isa. You will be there. I typed a single response. No. Then I muted the chat, turned off my phone, and opened the file for the strategy meeting. Let them rage. Let them threaten. Let them finally face the mirrors I'd spent years polishing. The truth was out, and I had a meeting to prepare for. They taught me well, after all, family always comes first. They just never expected me to put myself first for once. My computer dinged with one final email from Victoria. Fine, I'm really booking that ticket to Paris now. Hope you're happy. I smiled and clicked delete. Some threats solved themselves. The intervention. The pounding on my apartment door started at 8 p.m. sharp. Isa Marie, open this door right now. Mom's voice carried through the hallway. I took a deep breath and turned the lock. They all burst in, a Mom, Dad, Victoria with mascara-stained cheeks, and Quinn looking unusually sober. Family intervention, Victoria announced dramatically, waving a printed copy of her letter. We're here to discuss your mental breakdown. Sit down, Dad commanded, his golfed hand stark against his white-knuckled grip on his own letter. I remained standing. No, you listen. I pulled out my phone. Should I play the voicemails from the loan companies looking for Quinn? Or maybe Victoria's credit card companies? Quinn shifted uncomfortably. Those records were private. Like my college fund was private before you borrowed it? That was different, Mom interjected. He had a business opportunity. It was gambling debts, I said flatly. Just like the money he's asking for now. Quinn's face reddened. You don't know. I have the bank statements, Quinn. Every casino withdrawal. Victoria jumped up. Well, what about my reputation? My followers are worried sick. I had to tell them I'm taking a mental health break in Paris. With what money? I asked. The art supply store called. Your credit card bounced again. See, Mom gestured wildly. She needs our help. Family helps family. No, Mom. Family doesn't exploit family. Family doesn't. Oh, spares the lecture, Victoria interrupted. Just because you got lucky with some corporate job. Lucky? I laughed. I worked 60-hour weeks while you were finding yourself on my credit card. I paid for classes you dropped, art supplies you never used, rent when you were between gigs. Your sister has a gift, Mom began. Yes, the gift of manipulation. And you enabled it, just like you enabled Quinn's gambling. That cleared his throat. Princess, about the kitchen renovation. The kitchen is fine, Dad. Your golf membership, however. That's different. I need to network. I pulled out more papers. Is that what you call losing $10,000 in club gambling last month? The room went silent. Mom turned to Dad, mouth open. You said that money went to Quinn's car. Dad tugged at his collar. Quinn jumped up. Wait, I got blamed for that? Sit down. Mom shouted. This is all Isa's fault. Keeping records like some spy. No, a quiet voice said. Everyone turned. It was Quinn. She's right. Victoria gasped. Traitor. No, look. Quinn ran his hands through his hair. I do have a gambling problem. The bank's not just threatening, they're pressing charges. Mom rushed to him. Baby, Why didn't you say? Because you always fix everything. He stepped away from her. But Issa's right. It has to stop. Victoria jumped up. This is ridiculous. Quinn, don't let him manipulate you, says the sister who got me fired for a prank. I counted. That was months ago. Get over it. Like you got over not getting into my university? Is that why you sabotage everything I achieve? I don't. Victoria stopped, tears forming. I'm not. Just what? Just destroyed my career? Just maxed out my credit cards? Just. I'm jealous, okay? She burst out. You make everything look so easy. School, work, life. While I'm just failing. The room fell silent again. Mom sank onto my couch, letter crumpling in her hands. We really are horrible, aren't we? She whispered. Dad stood up straighter. Now let's not get carried away. No, look at these letters. Mom spread them out. Every manipulation, every guilt trip, every double standard. We did this. All of it. Victoria wiped her eyes, smearing mascara further. I never meant. I mean, the prank wasn't supposed to. To. To what? I asked quietly. To hurt me? To derail my life? To make yourself feel better? Quinn picked up his letter. We need help. Real help, not money. Actual professional help. Therapy. Victoria scoffed, then paused. Actually, maybe. Mom looked up at me. You kept these records all these years. You knew this day would come. I hoped it wouldn't. Dad cleared his throat again. The contractor. I should probably cancel. Probably. Probably, I agreed. They left one by one. Quinn first, clutching a business card for a gambling addiction counselor. Victoria next, makeup completely ruined, mumbling about canceling her Paris posts. Dad slipped out quietly, already on the phone with his golf club. Mom lingered at the door. We really messed up, didn't we? Yes. Can we? Can we fix this? I looked at her steadily. That depends. Are you ready to actually change? She nodded slowly, then left without another word. I closed the door behind them, listening to their footsteps fade. Sometimes the hardest conversations are the most necessary ones, and sometimes the truth, however painful, is the only path to healing. The rebuilding. 3 weeks after the confrontation, Mom called an emergency family meeting at their house. I almost didn't go, but Quinn's text convinced me. Things are different, promise. Walking into my childhood home, I immediately noticed changes. The designer furniture Mom had bought on credit was gone, replaced by their old, comfortable pieces. Dad's golf trophies had vanished from the mantel. Victoria sat in the corner, unusually subdued, scrolling through her phone. Look, she said as I entered, holding up the screen. She'd posted, time to get real with my followers. No more fake Paris plans. Starting therapy and facing my truth. Authentic life begins with harsh growth. Quinn arrived next, carrying a folder of papers. First NOM meeting was yesterday, he said quietly. Should have done this years ago. Mom and Dad emerged from the kitchen carrying coffee cups instead of their usual wine glasses. Sit, everyone, Mom said, her yoga designer outfit replaced by simple jeans and a sweater. We need to talk about changes. Dad cleared his throat. I've sold my golf club membership, paid off some of our credit cards, and I've canceled the kitchen renovation. We're seeing a financial advisor, Mom added. Victoria looked up from her phone. I got a real job. Like, with actual hours and everything. Doing what? I asked, trying to keep the skepticism from my voice. Administrative assistant at an art gallery, she managed a small smile. Not running it, just learning the business properly this time. Quinn opened his folder. I've worked out payment plans with the banks. It will take years, but... He looked at me. I'm not asking for loans anymore. Promise. We're all in therapy, Mom said. Separately. And we're starting family sessions next week. She paused. If you'd consider joining us. I sat back, studying their faces. The usual manipulation was missing from their eyes. Instead, I saw something new: accountability. I'll think about it. Dad stood up. There's something else. He walked to the hall closet and returned with a box. We found these while clearing out the credit card purchases. Inside were my old report cards, academic awards, newspaper clippings of my business competition wins, things I thought they'd never kept. We did notice, Mom said softly. We just. We let Victoria's drama and Quinn's crises overshadow everything. It was easier than admitting we were failing as parents. Victoria moved to speak, but the doorbell interrupted. Oh, Mom looked flustered. That must be. Larry Ford walked in carrying a folder. What's he doing here? I stood up. Sit down, Isa, Larry said kindly. Your family called me last week. They wanted to understand exactly what they almost cost you. He opened the folder. Should I tell them about the partnership track you're on? The clients you've brought in? The fact that 3 other firms have tried to headhunt you? Victoria's phone dropped to her lap. Other companies want you. Your sister, Larry continued, is one of the most talented executives I've ever worked with. The prank that got her fired from Morgan and Pierce? It cost them their biggest account and their market position. Dad's face fell. We had no idea. No, you didn't. Larry turned to me. I hope you don't mind me coming. They seemed genuine in wanting to understand. Mom wiped her eyes. We were so focused on fixing everyone else's problems, we never saw how we were hurting you. I have something to say. Victoria stood up. I sabotaged you because I couldn't stand being the family failure anymore. But watching you succeed anyway, despite what I did, it made me realize I was the one holding myself back. Quinn nodded. We all were. Using you as our safety net meant we never had to grow up. Larry smiled. Well, my work here is done. Isa, take tomorrow off. I think your family has more to discuss. He headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and the board meeting about your senior partnership is next week. After he left, silence fell. Mom broke it first. We can't undo what we did, she said. But we can do better going forward. Real change, not just promises. And facing our own problems, Quinn added. Victoria stood up. And celebrating your success instead of trying to sabotage it. I looked around at their faces, genuinely remorseful, finally aware of their actions. The manipulation and entitlement had been replaced by something that looked surprisingly like growth. Okay, I said finally. I'll come to family therapy. But on one condition. Anything? Mom said quickly. We'd do it right this time. Complete honesty, no more secrets, no more enabling, no more guilt trips. They nodded, and for the first time in years, I felt something shift, not forgiveness exactly. That would take time, but possibility. The possibility of a healthier family dynamic built on truth instead of manipulation. Sometimes the hardest lessons come from seeing your own reflection in someone else's mirror, and sometimes, just sometimes, that reflection can spark real change. Epilogue is 6 months later, and that concludes our quarterly family financial review, the therapist said, closing her notebook. Quinn, excellent progress on the gambling recovery. Victoria, your savings account is growing. Mr. and Mrs. Hall, your credit card debt is nearly cleared. I sat back in my chair, watching my family's proud faces. These monthly meetings had become our new normal, a chance to hold each other accountable and celebrate real progress. Isa's turn, Mom said, but without the old demanding tone. How's the senior partnership going? Actually, I pulled out some papers. I wanted to discuss something with everyone. Victoria tensed. You're not moving away, are you? No, I smiled. I'm starting my own consulting firm. Larry's backing me as a silent partner. Instead of immediate demands for jobs or money, my announcement was met with thoughtful silence. That's incredible, Quinn said finally. You always were the entrepreneurial one. Remember her lemonade stand? Dad chuckled. She made enough to buy her own bicycle, while Victoria was giving free drinks to cute boys. Victoria laughed, actually laughed at the memory. And Quinn kept drinking the inventory. Speaking of inventory, I continued. I'll need help with market research. Victoria, Your social media expertise could be useful. Paid consultancy, of course. Proper contract and everything. Her eyes widened. You trust me after everything? You've earned it. Your gallery work shows you've changed. Mom started to speak, probably to suggest Dad's involvement, but caught herself. That's wonderful, dear. Let us know if you need anything. Emotional support, not money, she added quickly. The therapist smiled. This is excellent progress. Shall we discuss holiday plans? Last year's boundaries worked well. Actually, Quinn spoke up. I have an announcement too. He pulled out his 9-month sobriety chip. The bank agreed to drop charges since I've stuck to the payment plan, and I'm leading a support group for other gambling addicts. Dad reached for his wallet, an old habit, then stopped himself. Instead, he simply said, I am proud of you, son. Victoria raised her hand like a schoolgirl. My turn. The gallery offered me a promotion. Assistant manager with a real salary. No more exposure payments or commission-only tricks. That's wonderful, Mom beamed, then turned to me. Isa, remember when you said we needed to face our true reflections? You were right. These meetings, the therapy, the accountability, it saved our family. Speaking of accountability, Dad added, the house is officially mortgage-free. No more secret loans or credit cards. The therapist made a final note. This seems like a natural conclusion to our family sessions. You've all developed healthy boundaries and communication skills. Would you like to schedule follow-ups quarterly instead of monthly? We looked at each other, a silent understanding passing between us. The old dynamics were gone, and no more enabler and enabled, no more golden child and scapegoat, no more manipulation and guilt. I think we're ready, I said. Outside the therapist's office, Victoria grabbed my arm. Hey, about that social media consultancy. I actually have some ideas. Real ones, not schemes. Could I pitch them to you over coffee maybe? I like that. Quinn checked his watch. Got to run. Leading a meeting tonight. Dad, need a ride to your book club? Dad nodded. The golf clubs had been replaced by a passion for reading, a much cheaper and healthier hobby. Mom hugged me, a real hug without the old passive-aggressive pat. Dinner this Sunday? I'm cooking. Nothing fancy, just family time. Sure, Mom. I'll bring dessert. As they left, I checked my phone, a message from Larry. Board approved your resignation. Ready to be your own boss? I looked up at my family getting into their separate cars, each going to their own lives, their own responsibilities, their own achievements. No more codependency, no more enabling, no more toxic patterns. Victoria turned back. Coffee tomorrow at 10 o'clock? That new place on Main? Perfect. Bring those ideas. And Isa, she hesitated. Thank you for not giving up on us, even when we deserved it. I watched them drive away, remembering the letters that had started this journey. They'd been bombs of truth, but from their explosion had grown something unexpected, a real family built on respect instead of obligation, support instead of enabling, truth instead of manipulation. My phone buzzed again, a family group chat message from Quinn. Proud of everyone today. We've come so far. Mom replied with a simple heart emoji. No guilt trip, no demands, just love. I smiled and typed, see you Sunday. Sometimes the hardest letters to write lead to the best endings, and sometimes the truth, however painful, sets everyone free. Sometimes necessary changes mean goodbye to outdated methodologies. Onwards and upwards. #marketing innovation, #Nura. The words from Brianna Wells' LinkedIn post burned on my smartphone screen as I sat alone in the upscale restaurant, waiting for Robert Klein from Sterling Financial to arrive for our breakfast meeting. Beside the text was a photo of Brianna standing proudly with Taylor Rivera in front of the Bluecrest creative logo, both women beaming with unrestrained optimism about the company's new direction. Outdated methodologies. My methodology. 15 years of relationship building, crisis navigation, and award-winning campaigns reduced to a dismissive hashtag. Just yesterday morning, I'd been the marketing director at Bluecrest Creative. Today, I was. What exactly? My phone vibrated again with another text message, the fifth in the last hour. Jessica. Dana, that LinkedIn post is outrageous. Call me immediately. Greenway Foods is reconsidering our relationship with Bluecrest. I placed the phone face down on the table, took a deep breath, and straightened my posture just as Robert entered the restaurant. At 58, the marketing director of Meridian Financial carried himself with the confident gravitas of someone who had survived the 2008 financial crisis and emerged stronger. Today, however, his face was flushed with barely contained anger. Outdated methodologies, he said without preamble, sliding into the booth across from me. Is she referring to the approach that won Sterling 3 industry awards last year? I maintained my professional composure, a skill honed through decades of client crisis management. Change is part of business, Robert. Not all change is progress, he counted, his voice tight. I've been with Bluecrest with you for 8 years. Through the financial crisis, through our rebranding, through everything. And yesterday, I get a call from some Taylor person who couldn't even pronounce our chief investment officer's name correctly. Robert leaned forward, his expression intense. What happened, Dana? The real story. There was no point hiding it anymore. Brianna's public post had made the situation painfully clear. I was let go. My methods were deemed obsolete. Robert's laugh was short and harsh. Obsolete? The Sterling account has grown 27% under your guidance. Our trust metrics are at an all-time high. Taylor Rivera is very accomplished in the digital space, I offered diplomatically. She brings a fresh perspective. Instagram followers don't build financial trust, Robert said flatly. So, what are your plans? The question caught me off guard, though I should have expected it. I'm exploring some options. Be specific, he pressed. I hesitated, then decided honesty was best. I'm joining a new venture. Summit Edge Marketing, a boutique agency focused on relationship-driven strategies. Robert pulled out his phone and made a note. And when will this agency be operational? We're finalizing details now. Should be fully functional within 2 weeks. He nodded, seemingly satisfied. I'll need information for our procurement department. The implications of his words hung in the air between us. I felt a complex mixture of gratitude for his loyalty and unease about the speed at which my professional world was transforming. Just 48 hours ago, I couldn't have imagined being in this position. But then again, I couldn't have imagined Brianna Wells so publicly dismissing the very approach that had built Bluecrest into what it was today. Flashback, the dismissal. Just yesterday morning, I had sat perfectly still in Brianna Wells' corner office, my hands folded in my lap as I processed her words. Your methods are outdated, she'd said, leaning against her glass desk with practiced casualness. The sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows caught on her expensive watch, a Cartier, if I wasn't mistaken. We need fresh perspectives that align with current marketing paradigms. Behind Brianna's shoulder, I could see downtown Fresno spread out below us. Somewhere in that vista was the small converted house where Bluecrest Creative had begun its life as Peterson Design Group 15 years ago. Back then, we were 6 passionate people with more ambition than resources. Now we occupied 3 floors of prime office space, with over 70 employees and a client roster that included some of the biggest names in the region. Dana, this is Taylor Rivera, Brianna continued, gesturing to the young woman standing beside her. She'll be taking over your accounts effective immediately. Taylor, with her perfect blowout and designer blazer, gave me what I assumed was meant to be a sympathetic smile. I'm really excited to build on the foundation you've established. Foundation? The word echoed in my mind as images flashed before me. The midnight strategy sessions during the 2008 financial crisis that saved Sterling Financial from collapse. The farm visits with Jessica from Greenway Foods where we crafted the Community Harvest Initiative that tripled their market share. The emergency calls with Thomas Wells when Valent faced that product recall disaster. My mother's voice suddenly surfaced in my memory. Dana, when someone can't see your value, it's not your job to convince them, it's your cue to move on. She told me that when I was 16 and devastated about being passed over for editor of the school newspaper despite having more experience than the boy who got the position. The advice had seemed simplistic then. Now, at 55, I recognized its wisdom. Valent, Greenway, and Sterling are our biggest accounts. I said calmly, my journalist training keeping my voice steady despite the emotional earthquake happening inside me. They've been with me for over a decade. They might be concerned about the transition. Brianna waved her hand dismissively. We've thought of that. Taylor will do introduction calls this week. Your severance package is generous, and Human Resources has the paperwork ready. I didn't argue. I didn't remind her that Thomas from Valent called me directly whenever they faced a PR crisis, not the Bluecrest main line. I didn't mention how I'd helped Sterling Financial rebuild their brand after the financial crash when everyone else had abandoned them. I didn't point out that Jessica from Greenway Foods had been at my daughter's wedding last summer, or that we shared yoga classes on Saturday mornings. Instead, I stood up, smoothed my skirt, and nodded. I understand. I'll clear out my office. As I turned to leave, Brianna added, we'd appreciate it if you'd make this transition amicable for everyone involved. The implication was clear. Don't make waves. Don't call clients. Don't damage the agency's reputation. Of course, I replied. I've always been professional. I had maintained that professionalism as I walked back to my office, nodding cordially to colleagues who had no idea what had just transpired. Inside, though, I was cycling through grief, shock, and anger in rapid succession. My career at Bluecrest was ending, not with the celebration and gratitude I might have expected after 15 years of dedication, but with a sterile conversation about outdated methodologies and a severance package. Flashback, the journey. As I packed my belongings later that morning, carefully wrapping industry awards and client thank you plaques, memories of my professional journey unfurled before me like a film montage. I remembered my first day at Peterson Design Group. The small converted Victorian house downtown had creaky wooden floors and temperamental plumbing, but Harold Peterson had transformed it into a creative haven. I was 34 then, recently widowed, with an 8-year-old daughter and a determination to reinvent myself in the marketing world after years as a journalist. Michael's death from cancer had left Emily and me emotionally raw but strangely focused. Promise me you'll find work that matters, he'd said during those final, morphine haze days. Life's too short for anything else. When Harold Peterson interviewed me, something clicked. Journalists understand what makes people care about a story, he'd said, his eyes lighting up as he reviewed my portfolio. That's the foundation of good marketing. Anyone can learn the technical aspects, but you already know how to reach hearts. Those early years were a blur of exhilarating, scrappy chaos, but full of genuine passion for the work. We celebrated each new client with pizza parties in the conference room that doubled as our lunch area. Harold insisted on handwritten thank you notes for every project, a practice I maintained even as we grew. When I landed the Valent account in my second year, an achievement that doubled our annual revenue, Harold gave me a plaque that still sat on my desk, Relationships Before Transactions. I traced my fingers over those engraved words now, remembering how Harold's mentorship had shaped my approach to marketing. People don't buy from businesses, he often said. They buy from people they trust. Over the years, I'd watched the agency grow, evolve, and eventually sell to a larger marketing group when Harold retired. I'd navigated changes in leadership, survived 2 rebrands, and adapted to shifting industry trends. But I'd always maintained that core philosophy. Genuine relationships were the foundation of lasting success. Now, that philosophy had been deemed outdated by a CEO who had been at the helm for less than 3 months. As I placed the final award in my box, Agency Professional of the Year, given to me just 4 months ago at the Western States Marketing Awards, the irony wasn't lost on me. Beside it, I laid my company laptop and badge, officially severing my ties to Bluegrass Creative. My phone buzzed with a text from my daughter, Emily. How did the meeting go? Still on for dinner tonight? I smiled despite everything. Definitely. And I have some news. Love you. As I took one last look around my office, I felt something unexpected beneath the shock and disappointment, a quiet certainty. They thought they were ending something today, but perhaps they were simply clearing the path for a new beginning. Flashback, dinner with Emily. That evening, the restaurant was busy for a Tuesday. Emily had already secured a booth by the time I arrived, and the sight of her, my confident, brilliant 25-year-old daughter, instantly lifted my spirits. With her dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail and her father's intelligent green eyes, She had grown into a woman who navigated the world with remarkable poise. "So, what's this mysterious news?" she asked after we ordered. "Did they finally make you partner?" I took a deep breath. "Actually, I was let go today." Emily's expression shifted from shock to outrage in seconds. "What? After 15 years?" "That's It's business," I interrupted gently. "New leadership, new vision." "It's not right," she insisted, her voice rising slightly. "You built that agency, Mom. Everyone knows Bluecrest would be nothing without you." I smiled at her fierce loyalty. Emily had grown up alongside Bluecrest, spending afternoons in my office drawing at a small table in the corner while I worked on campaigns, later interning during college breaks. She understood the blood, sweat, and tears I'd poured into the place. "It's okay. Really," I reassured her, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. "Maybe it's time for a change." Emily studied me over her water glass, her expression shifting to one of careful analysis. "You're taking this suspiciously well. What are you planning?" That was my daughter, always able to read between my carefully composed lines, a skill she'd inherited from her father. "Do you remember Jason Chen and Veronica Patel? They left Bluecrest last year." She nodded. "Your former creative director and the digital strategist." "Of course. They've been trying to convince you to join them in starting something new, a boutique agency focused on relationship marketing rather than just chasing trends." Recognition dawned on Emily's face. "And you've been saying no because of your loyalty to Bluecrest." "Exactly. But now you're free," she finished for me, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Free. The word resonated through me like a bell tone. As our food arrived, I realized I hadn't thought of it that way, but Emily was right. After years of balancing increasingly corporate demands with my client-centered approach, I was suddenly unencumbered by those constraints. I called Jason right after the meeting, I admitted. "We're having breakfast tomorrow to discuss me coming on as a founding partner at Summit Edge Marketing." Emily raised her glass. "To new beginnings." And to Brianna Wells eventually realizing what she threw away. As we ate, I shared more details about the dismissal, Brianna's condescension, Taylor's manufactured sympathy, the clear message that my methods were considered obsolete. "Tell me about Brianna," Emily said. "She came from the tech world, right?" I nodded. "She was a marketing VP at a Silicon Valley startup that had a successful IPO last year. The board brought her in to modernize Bluecrest's approach." I took a sip of water. Her previous company specialized in disruptive growth strategies, quick scaling, aggressive digital tactics, constant pivoting. Very different from our relationship-based model. "And they expect that to work with clients like Sterling Financial and Greenway Foods?" Emily shook her head incredulously. "Those companies specifically chose Bluecrest because of your approach." "Well, that's the gamble they're taking," I replied. "What about your clients? Valen and the others, won't they be upset?" I hesitated. "I signed a non-solicitation agreement years ago. I can't directly poach clients. But if they came to you on their own, that would be different," Emily suggested, her marketing degree showing. "I suppose, but I don't know if they will. Companies form relationships with agencies, not individuals." Even as I said it, I knew it wasn't entirely true. Thomas had called me directly just last week about Valen's upcoming product launch. Jessica had texted me pictures from her daughter's graduation. Robert had sent me a handwritten card after our last successful campaign for Sterling Financial. But I couldn't count on sentiment in the business world. Brianna would undoubtedly be working to secure those relationships, probably scheduling meetings already. Either way, I told Emily, looking down at my halibut dinner, I need to move forward, not backward. My phone buzzed in my purse, then again and again. I pulled it out to find 3 texts from 3 different numbers. Thomas, heard the news. Need to talk tomorrow. Jessica. Dana, please call me. Urgent. Robert. This is unacceptable. Breakfast tomorrow. I looked up at Emily, who raised an eyebrow at my expression. What? She asked. It seems, I said slowly, a mixture of vindication and surprise warming my chest, that those agency-client relationships might be more personal than Brianna realized. Flashback. Summit Edge beginnings. The next morning, I sat across from Jason Chen and Veronica Patel at Riverside Cafe, the aroma of fresh coffee mingling with the excitement of new possibilities. Jason, at 53, had the intense creative energy that had made him one of the region's most respected creative directors before he left Bluecrest. Veronica, 48, balanced his creative flights with her incisive strategic mind, a skill she'd honed at tech companies before joining the agency world. "We've been waiting for this moment," Jason admitted, sliding a folder across the table. "We've held off on officially launching Summit Edge until we could approach you again." I opened the folder to find detailed business plans, financial projections, and a proposed organizational structure with my name listed as founding partner and client relations lead. "You two have been busy," I observed, impressed by the thoroughness of their planning. Veronica, always direct, leaned forward. "Dana, we've watched Bluecrest drift further from Harold's vision every year. The corporate takeover was just the final straw for us. When Brianna was appointed, we knew it was only a matter of time before they pushed you out, too." I thought about Veronica's background, born to Indian immigrant parents who had built a successful grocery chain through personal connections with their community. For her, business had always been inseparable from relationships. "The industry is changing," I acknowledged, "but that doesn't mean relationships and trust are obsolete." "Exactly." Jason nodded enthusiastically, his salt and pepper hair falling across his forehead. His creative genius had always been rooted in emotional intelligence, understanding what made people care. "All this talk about disruption misses the point. Good marketing has always been about connecting with people, understanding their needs, and building trust. The tools change, but the fundamentals don't." I appreciated their passion, but remained cautious. "I believe in your vision, our vision, but starting from scratch isn't easy. It took years to build Bluecrest's client base." Veronica and Jason exchanged glances. "We have something to show you," Veronica said, pulling out her tablet. She opened an email and turned it toward me. "This came in last night. It's an inquiry from Westlake Industries, a medium-sized manufacturing company that had been on Bluecrest's prospect list for years." "How did they find you?" "You haven't even launched yet," I asked, surprised. Jason smiled. "Word gets around. A former colleague mentioned our plans to their marketing director, who's apparently frustrated with their current agency." As I continued reading, my phone rang. Thomas Wells from Valent. "I should take this," I said, stepping away from the table. "Dana," Thomas began without preamble, "what the hell is going on at Bluecrest?" "I got a call yesterday introducing me to someone named Taylor who's supposedly taking over our account." I chose my words carefully. "There's been a leadership change, Thomas. The new CEO has different ideas about client management." "Different ideas?" He sounded incredulous. "We've worked together for a decade. You know our business inside and out, and they think they can just swap you out like an interchangeable part? We hired Bluecrest because of you." His directness shouldn't have surprised me. Thomas had built Valent from a small electronics company into a regional powerhouse by valuing straightforward communication above all else. "I appreciate your concern," I replied diplomatically. "It's not concern, Dana. It's business," Thomas clarified. "I'm meeting with this Taylor person today out of courtesy, but I want to know what your plans are." I hesitated. "I can't solicit Bluecrest clients." "You know that." "I'm not asking you to solicit," Thomas said. "I'm asking where you're going, because Valent may be interested in following." When I returned to the table, both Jason and Veronica could read my expression. "Valent?" Jason guessed. I nodded, still processing the conversation. "And I have breakfast with Robert from Sterling Financial at 9:30, then a call with Jessica from Greenway at 11. Veronica leaned back, a slow smile spreading across her face. "So, all three of Bluecrest's biggest accounts reached out to you within hours of your departure?" "Dana, that's not coincidence." "It's not a done deal," I cautioned. "They're loyal, but they're also businesses. Brianna will fight to keep them." "With what?" Jason asked. "Taylor Rivera's Instagram following? These clients want substance, not style." As we continued our discussion, my phone buzzed with an email. It was from Brianna. "Dana, regarding client transitions, please remember your contractual obligations." Any attempt to solicit Bluecrest clients will be met with immediate legal action. I trust you'll act professionally. Brianna Wells, CEO. I showed the email to Jason and Veronica. She's worried, Veronica observed, her dark eyes narrowing. She should be, Jason added. I looked between my two potential business partners, a decision crystallizing in my mind. Let's do this, I said finally. But we do it right. No solicitation, no legal gray areas. If these clients come to us, it will be entirely their decision. Veronica raised her coffee mug. To Summit Edge Marketing, founded on relationships built to last. As we clinked mugs, I felt something I hadn't expected, relief. This wasn't just about survival after being let go. This was about building something that truly reflected my values. Present day, the meeting with Robert. Now, as I sat with Robert at the restaurant, watching his reaction to Brianna's LinkedIn post, I realized just how quickly the professional landscape was shifting beneath my feet. Not all change is progress, Robert said, standing up. I need to make some calls. Expect to hear from our procurement team soon. As he left, my phone rang. Jessica from Greenway Foods, calling early. Dana, she began without greeting. I just saw Brianna's post. Is that why you left? Because she thinks relationship marketing is outdated? Jessica paused. Because if that's Bluecrest's new philosophy, we have a serious problem. Greenway's entire brand is built on relationships with farmers, with communities, with customers. I took a deep breath. I didn't leave by choice, Jessica. A pause. You were fired? Her tone conveyed disbelief. The term was restructuring, I clarified. But essentially, yes. Because my methods are outdated. This is unbelievable, Jessica continued, her normally measured voice rising with indignation. After everything you've done, the Farmland Heritage Campaign, the Community Harvest Initiative, these weren't just marketing successes, Dana. They captured the very soul of our company. Jessica had built Greenway Foods from her grandmother's recipes and a commitment to sustainable farming practices. For her, the relationships with local farmers weren't just marketing talking points. They were the foundation of her business philosophy. Jessica, I value our professional relationship immensely, but I can't solicit you. I reminded her gently. I don't need you to solicit anything, she interrupted. I'm informing you that Greenway will be reviewing our agency relationships immediately. Where can I reach you if we need to discuss alternatives? I gave her my personal contact information, a surreal feeling washing over me. Within 24 hours of being dismissed as obsolete, 3 major clients were independently reaching out to follow me. After ending the call, I sat alone at the table, processing everything. Brianna's post had been a strategic error, a public dismissal of the very approach her biggest clients valued. In trying to position Bluecrest as cutting edge, she'd inadvertently signaled to relationship-focused clients that they were no longer a priority. My phone buzzed again, a text from Jason. Emergency at Summit Edge HQ. Can you come now? Summit Edge headquarters was currently Jason's home office, where we'd been setting up temporary operations. Concerned, I paid the bill and rushed over. When I arrived, I found Jason and Veronica staring at a computer screen, looking stunned. What's wrong? I asked. Veronica turned the screen toward me. Nothing's wrong, but you need to see this. It was an email from Thomas Wells at Valent. After careful consideration, Valent is terminating our contract with Bluecrest Creative, effective immediately. We'll be seeking new representation that aligns with our commitment to meaningful client relationships. The next 48 hours were a whirlwind. By Wednesday afternoon, all 3 companies, Valent Tech, Greenway Foods, and Sterling Financial, had formally terminated their relationships with Bluecrest Creative. By Thursday morning, we were fielding inquiries from 2 additional Bluecrest clients who had caught wind of the exodus. This is happening faster than we anticipated, Veronica said during our impromptu strategy session in Jason's living room. We need to accelerate our timeline. Jason nodded, typing furiously on his laptop. I've got our designer finalizing the logo today. The website framework is ready. We need office space, like, yesterday. I might have a solution for that, I offered. Harold Peterson still owns that converted house downtown where Bluecrest started. He's been leasing it to a nonprofit that's moving to a larger space next month. Veronica's eyes lit up. That would be perfect, symbolism, returning to the roots of what marketing should be. I sent a quick text to Harold, who responded almost immediately. For you, Dana, it's yours. Let's talk tomorrow. As we continued planning, my phone rang with an unknown number. I excused myself to take the call. Dana Collins? My voice was tentative. Miss Collins, this is Deanna Wilson, chairperson of the board at Bluecrest Creative. My heart skipped a beat. The board chair herself. This was unexpected. Miss Wilson, how can I help you? I'll be direct, she said, her tone businesslike but not unfriendly. We've had some concerning developments at Bluecrest. 3 major accounts terminating simultaneously has raised significant questions about our current leadership. I remained silent, waiting for her to continue. The board is meeting tomorrow to discuss these developments. Before we make any decisions, I wanted to hear your perspective on what transpired. Carefully selecting my words, I explained the situation: Brianna's dismissal of relationship marketing, my termination, the introduction of Taylor as my replacement. I emphasized that I had not solicited any clients, that they had each independently reached out to me. And these accounts, they're following you to a new venture? She asked. That appears to be their intention, I confirmed. A long pause followed. Would you consider returning to Bluecrest if certain changes were made in leadership? The question caught me off guard. Return to Bluecrest after being unceremoniously dismissed? After being labeled outdated? A memory surfaced, my father's voice from decades ago when I was considering returning to a newspaper that had previously undervalued my work. Never go back to a place that couldn't see your worth the first time around, Dana. Your talent deserves better. Ms. Wilson, I'm flattered by the implication, but I've committed to a new path. My partners and I are launching Summit Edge Marketing. We've already signed lease paperwork and filed our business formation documents. I understand, she said, sounding disappointed. One final question, if I may. These client departures, do you believe they're about you personally, or about the approach to marketing that Brianna is dismissing? Both, I answered honestly. In relationship marketing, the personal and professional are intertwined. These clients value consistency, trust, and a deep understanding of their businesses. That takes years to build and seconds to destroy. After ending the call, I returned to find Jason and Veronica looking expectant. The board chair, I explained. They're questioning Brianna's leadership. Jason let out a low whistle. After 3 days? That's got to be some kind of record. They asked if I would consider coming back, I admitted. Veronica's expression shifted to concern. And? I told her I'm committed to Summit Edge. Relief washed over both their faces. Good, Veronica said firmly, because we just got confirmation from Sterling Financial. They want to sign with us as soon as we're operational. My phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from Thomas at Valent, with the subject line, "Contract ready for review." As I opened it, another email arrived from Jessica at Greenway Foods, moving forward with Summit Edge. In just 3 days, we had secured commitments from clients representing over $4 million in annual billing. Summit Edge hadn't even officially launched yet. I think, Jason said with growing excitement, we're going to need a bigger office. 6 months later, full circle, 6 months after that tumultuous week, Summit Edge had established itself as a formidable presence in the regional marketing landscape. We'd moved beyond our founding clients to secure 4 new accounts, each drawn to our relationship-centered philosophy. Our team had doubled in size, necessitating an expansion into the building next door to Harold's original office. The morning of our 6-month anniversary celebration, I arrived early to prepare my remarks. As I set up in our conference room, the front desk called to inform me I had a visitor. To my surprise, it was Taylor Rivera, my former replacement at Bluecrest. Do you have a moment? She asked, looking significantly less confident than she had in Brianna's office 6 months earlier. Her designer blazer had been replaced with a more subdued outfit, and her once perfect blowout was now a simple ponytail. I invited her in, curious about the purpose of her visit. I've been following Summit Edge's growth, Taylor began, fidgeting with her coffee cup. What you've built in 6 months is remarkable. Thank you, I replied neutrally. What can I do for you, Taylor? She took a deep breath. After you left, everything at Bluecrest fell apart. Without the major accounts, they couldn't sustain the staff. There have been 3 rounds of layoffs. I hadn't been following Bluecrest's situation closely, focusing instead on building our new agency. I'm sorry to hear that. The thing is, Taylor continued, her voice steadying, I realized something important. Brianna was wrong about outdated methods. What you did, building those client relationships, that wasn't outdated. It was foundational. Her honesty was unexpected. The accounts I was given, she admitted, they all left within weeks. I couldn't maintain them because I hadn't built the trust you had. I tried to implement the newest digital strategies, the cutting-edge analytics, but she shook her head. It didn't matter. They wanted the relationship, not just the tactics. I studied her carefully. There was genuine regret in her expression, a humility that hadn't been there before. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Taylor straightened her shoulders. Bluecrest let me go last week. I'm here because I want to learn from you, the right way to do this work. The request caught me off guard. This young woman, who had been positioned as my innovative replacement, was now asking to learn from me. I don't expect you to hire me, she clarified quickly, reading my expression. But maybe mentorship? I realized I need to build a foundation before I can innovate on top of it. Her words echoed Harold Peterson's philosophy perfectly, the same philosophy I'd carried through my career, the same philosophy that built Summit Edge into a thriving agency in just 6 months. I studied her carefully. There was genuine regret in her expression, a humility that wasn't there before. I thought about how easy it would be to turn her away, to savor this moment of vindication. But something in her earnestness reminded me of myself at her age, talented but needing guidance to channel that talent effectively. We have a celebration this afternoon, I told Taylor. Our 6-month anniversary. Why don't you join us? See what we've built here, meet the team, and then we can talk about what mentorship might look like. The relief on her face was immediate and genuine. Thank you, Dana. I appreciate the opportunity more than you know. After she left, I found myself reflecting on the strange symmetry of this situation. 6 months ago, I had been the one deemed obsolete, my experience dismissed in favor of Taylor's fresh perspective. Now, here was Taylor, recognizing the value of that very experience she had been hired to replace. I pulled out my phone and texted Emily. The most unexpected thing just happened. Taylor Rivera came to ask for mentorship. Her reply came almost immediately. Classic. Full circle moment. What did you say? I invited her to the celebration today. We'll see. You're a bigger person than I would be. But that's why you're you. I smiled at my daughter's response. Perhaps this was the true measure of success, not just proving your critics wrong, but being secure enough in your own value to help others find theirs. The celebration. The Summit Edge anniversary celebration that afternoon was filled with genuine camaraderie and shared purpose. Our team gathered in the expanded office space, surrounded by framed campaign successes from our first 6 months. The energy was palpable. This wasn't just a business. It was a community united by shared values. Harold Peterson had arrived early, his 80-year-old frame still commanding respect as he moved through the room, shaking hands and sharing stories. Seeing him here, in the very building where he had started Peterson Design Group decades ago, created a powerful sense of continuity. As I stood to address everyone, I surveyed the faces before me. Former Bluecrest colleagues who had found a new professional home, new hires bringing fresh perspectives, and in the back, Taylor, watching everything with attentive eyes. 6 months ago, we started Summit Edge with a simple belief. I began that in marketing, as in life, relationships matter. That trust is earned through consistency and understanding. That listening is more valuable than talking. The room nodded in collective agreement. We took a risk. Many people would say that starting an agency based on outdated methodologies was foolish. A knowing chuckle rippled through the room. But what we've built isn't just a response to rejection. It's an affirmation of what we've always known to be true. Marketing isn't about chasing trends. It's about connecting authentically with the humans behind the data points. I looked toward Harold, who was beaming with pride. When Harold gave me my first job in marketing, he told me something I've never forgotten. Trends come and go, but human nature remains constant. People will always value authenticity, trust, and genuine connection. Harold raised his glass slightly in acknowledgement. That philosophy guided us through the early days at Peterson Design Group, sustained us through the growth into Bluecrest Creative, and now forms the cornerstone of Summit Edge Marketing. I paused, looking around the room, and the results speak for themselves. In just 6 months, we've secured 7 major clients, doubled our staff, and exceeded our first-year revenue projections, all by remembering that at the heart of every marketing challenge is a human connection waiting to be made. I raised my glass to Summit Edge, to relationships that last, and to the understanding that sometimes the most valuable asset in a company isn't a methodology or a technology. It's the people who build connections that matter. Applause filled the room, and as everyone toasted, I caught a glimpse of myself reflected in the window. Not the devastated professional who had packed up her office 6 months ago, but a woman who had transformed a setback into an opportunity to build something meaningful. After the toast, people broke into small groups, conversations flowing easily between colleagues old and new. I made my way to where Taylor stood, somewhat awkwardly, on the periphery. "What do you think?" I asked her. "It's different from Bluecrest," she observed. "More organic. Everyone seems genuinely happy to be here." I nodded. "That's intentional. We believe the culture we create internally affects the work we produce externally." Taylor hesitated, then asked, "Can I ask you something? When we replaced you, weren't you angry? How did you manage to turn that around so quickly?" The question deserved honesty. "I was angry," I admitted. "Hurt too. 15 years is a long time to commit to something, only to be told you're obsolete. So how did you move past it?" I considered the question carefully. I realized 2 things. First, that my value wasn't determined by Brianna's assessment of it. And second, that looking backward in anger would only prevent me from moving forward with purpose. I watched understanding dawn in Taylor's eyes. "That's what I'm trying to do now," she said quietly. "Move forward with purpose." "It's never too late to learn that lesson," I told her, thinking of my own journey. "The question now is, what do you want that purpose to be?" Private reflect. Later that evening, after the celebration had wound down and most of the team had gone home, I found myself alone in my office. Through the window, I could see the sunset painting the sky in vibrant shades of orange and purple, nature's own celebration of endings and beginnings. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the relationships before transactions plaque that Harold had given me all those years ago. The brass had tarnished slightly, but the words remained as relevant as ever. A gentle knock interrupted my thoughts. Emily stood in the doorway, a smile on her face. "I thought I might find you here," she said, coming in to perch on the edge of my desk. "Congratulations, Mom. The party was a hit. You should be celebrating with your friends, not checking on your mother," I told her, though I was genuinely touched by her presence. Emily shrugged. "I wanted to see how you were doing. Today was a big milestone." I nodded, running my fingers over the engraved plaque. "It feels surreal sometimes. 6 months ago, I was packing up my office at Bluecrest, wondering what was next. Now, now you're the founder of the hottest boutique agency in the region," Emily finished, "with your former replacement asking to learn from you. That has to feel good." "It's not about vindication," I said, though there was undeniably a certain satisfaction to it. "It's about validation. Knowing that the principles I've always believed in, the ones your father believed in, the ones Harold taught me, still matter in this digital age." Emily's expression softened at the mention of her father. "Dad would be proud, you know. Not just of the success, but of how you got here, by staying true to yourself." "I've been thinking about him a lot lately," I admitted. "Remember how he always said that life's challenges were just redirections, not roadblocks?" Emily smiled. "His favorite metaphor. When one door closes, don't waste time knocking. Find another door and kick it open." We laughed together, sharing the memory of Michael's characteristic optimism, the same optimism that had sustained him through his illness and that had, in many ways, been his final gift to us. "What about Taylor?" Emily asked, bringing me back to the present. "Are you really going to mentor her?" I considered the question. I think so. She has talent, and she's learned a hard lesson about what matters in this business. Besides, I added with a slight smile, what better way to ensure our approach survives than to pass it on to the next generation? Emily nodded approvingly. Very strategic, Mom. Very relationship focused. As we prepared to leave for the dinner we had planned, I took one last look around my office at what we had built from the ashes of rejection. The journey from Bluecrest to Summit Edge hadn't been about revenge. It had been about validation, proof that genuine relationships and authentic marketing still mattered in a world obsessed with the next trend. The clients who had followed me hadn't done so out of loyalty alone, but because they recognized the value of a partnership built on understanding and trust. In the end, Brianna had been right about one thing. It was time for change. Just not the kind she had envisioned. The real innovation wasn't in abandoning proven approaches, but in recommitting to the human connections that make marketing truly effective. As I turned off the light and closed my office door, I felt a profound sense of peace. Sometimes, being told you're obsolete is just the universe's way of telling you it's time to prove otherwise. And sometimes, the most powerful statement isn't a grand gesture of revenge, but simply letting your true worth walk out the door with you, and watching as it grows into something even more valuable than what you left behind. Opening, the LinkedIn post revisited, 6 months after that fateful LinkedIn post. Sometimes necessary changes mean goodbye to outdated methodologies. I sat in my new office at Summit Edge Marketing, reviewing our quarterly performance reports. The irony wasn't lost on me as I scanned the numbers. Our outdated approach had resulted in a 42% growth rate in just half a year. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Taylor Rivera, once my replacement, now my mentee, stood in the doorway with a tablet in hand. "You'll want to see this," she said, placing the device on my desk. It was a new LinkedIn post from Brianna Wells, excited to announce my new position as Digital Integration Specialist at Tech Forward Solutions. After a challenging tenure in traditional marketing, I'm thrilled to return to the tech sector where innovation and disruption are truly valued. #onward Santaports #fresh start. I looked up at Taylor, who was trying unsuccessfully to hide a smirk. "I heard from a friend still at Bluecrest that the board finally had enough," she said. "3 quarters of declining revenue will do that." I nodded thoughtfully, handing the tablet back to her. Everyone finds their place eventually. Maybe the tech sector is where Brianna truly belongs. "That's very generous of you," Taylor observed. "If I were in your position, I might be a little more satisfied." I smiled. "The best response to being undervalued isn't revenge, Taylor. It's success." As she left my office, I turned to look out the window at the view of downtown Fresno. Somewhere out there was the Bluecrest Creative Office building where I'd spent 15 years of my career. And here I was, in a converted Victorian house that had once been the original Peterson Design Group, the full circle journey of my professional life. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "Lunch today?" "I have big news." "Definitely," I replied. "1 p.m. at Giuseppe's?" "Can't wait to hear." I returned to my quarterly reports, but my mind wandered to the journey of the past 6 months, from that moment of shock in Brianna's office to today. From being deemed obsolete to founding a thriving agency that embodied the values I'd always believed in. Sometimes, I realized, the endings we fear most are simply the beginnings we need most. And sometimes, the most powerful statement isn't what you say when they show you the door. It's what you build after you walk through it. I never expected to become an entrepreneur at 50. But here I am, standing in my newly renovated dental office that just happens to be directly across the street from the practice that decided I was worth 30% less after 18 years of dedication. Sunlight streams through the windows of what will soon be Sunridge Family Dental. Dr. Nathan Fuller is discussing something with the contractor, but I'm momentarily lost in thought, staring at the Desert Bloom Dental sign visible through our front window. The practice I helped build from the ground up. The place I thought I'd retire from someday. 3 months ago, I couldn't have imagined this moment. But that was before Austin and Melissa, the corporate representatives who took over after Dr. Hughes retired, called me into that sterile gray conference room and shattered my sense of security with a few cold words. Flashback. The announcement: "We need to adjust your compensation to industry standards. 30% less with no bonuses moving forward," Melissa announced, her voice crisp and detached as she straightened the papers in front of her. It's purely business. Austin nodded beside her, not quite meeting my eyes. The corporate office has done extensive analysis on administrative compensation. This brings you in line with national averages. I sat across from them in the newly remodeled conference room of Desert Bloom Dental, the practice I'd helped build from the ground up. The walls had recently been repainted from our warm southwestern coral to a sterile gray that matched the new corporate branding. My father's words echoed in my mind. Barbara, never let them see when they've hurt you. Dad had worked 40 years at the same factory, only to be let go 6 months before his pension would have fully vested. I was 12 when that happened, but I still remember his dignified silence as he cleaned out his desk. I kept my face carefully neutral despite the anger bubbling inside me. I'll need to review the terms carefully, I replied, taking the folder they slid across the table. My voice remained steady, professional, just as it had been during the thousands of patient interactions I'd managed over the past 18 years. Of course, Melissa said with a thin smile, clearly relieved I hadn't made a scene. We'll need your decision by Friday. Walking back to my office, I noticed Jessica, our newest hygienist, looking worried as she prepared her station for the next patient. Everything okay? She asked quietly. I nodded. Just some administrative changes being discussed. I wasn't ready to share the news yet, not until I'd processed it myself. Back at my desk, I opened my drawer and pulled out the business card I'd received 2 weeks earlier at the regional dental conference. Dr. Nathan Fuller had approached me during the lunch break, expressing admiration for how Desert Bloom operated. If you ever consider making a change, he had said, I'd love to discuss some ideas with you. At the time, I'd politely tucked the card away. Now, with trembling fingers, I picked up my phone and dialed the number. Flashback, building Desert Bloom. I've never considered myself irreplaceable. After all, in healthcare administration, the goal is to create systems so efficient that operations continue smoothly regardless of who's managing them. But there's a difference between building reliable systems and building relationships. When Dr. Hughes hired me 18 years ago, I was a 32-year-old single mother with administrative experience but no dental background. My husband had left when Catherine was 6, leaving me with a mountain of debt and a child to raise alone. I remember the panic I felt walking into that interview, knowing this job could mean the difference between stability and disaster for us. Dr. Hughes recognized something in me that went beyond my resume. Barbara, he'd said during my interview, I can teach anyone about dental procedures and insurance codes. What I can't teach is how to genuinely care about people. Over the years, I'd become more than an office manager. I was the face patients saw when they walked in, the voice that called to check on them after difficult procedures, the person who remembered their children's names and college graduations. When elderly patients couldn't drive, I organized transportation. When families struggled financially, I found ways to work with insurance companies to maximize their benefits. My desk drawer contained 18 years of thank you cards, not addressed to Desert Bloom Dental, but to me personally. Cards from Mrs. Wilson, who brought homemade cookies every Friday for 12 years. From the Peterson family, whose son overcame his dental phobia because I spent extra time helping him feel comfortable. From Dr. Hughes himself, when I worked through weekends to help transition our records to a new system. None of that seemed to matter to Austin and Melissa. They'd arrived 3 months ago with spreadsheets and corporate manuals, introducing efficiency protocols and patient processing improvements. Dr. Hughes had barely cleared out his office before they replaced our comfortable waiting room furniture with sleek, identical chairs that matched their corporate branding. Has Dr. Hughes actually retired? Mrs. Peterson had whispered to me last week. This doesn't feel like the same place anymore. I had smiled and assured her we were still committed to excellent care. But walking back to my office after my compensation meeting with Austin and Melissa, I wondered if that was still true, and more importantly, if I could still be part of it. Meeting with Dr. Fuller. They want to cut my salary by 30%, I explained to Dr. Fuller 3 hours later. We sat in a quiet corner of Wildflower Bread Company, away from the lunch crowd. No more performance bonuses either. Dr. Fuller nodded thoughtfully, stirring his iced tea. Unfortunately, that's becoming standard practice when corporate groups acquire independent dental offices. They see administrative staff as an expense to minimize, not an asset to value. At 45, Nathan Fuller had the confident demeanor of someone who knew his worth. His father had been a corporate dentist who rarely saw the same patient twice, and Nathan had grown up hearing about the ones that got away, patients his father wished he could have followed through their dental journey. It had shaped his entire approach to dentistry. I've been saving to open my own practice, he continued. Something smaller, more patient-focused. The kind of place where we know every patient by name, not by production value. That sounds like what Desert Bloom used to be, I said, unable to keep the wistfulness from my voice. Exactly, and that's why I wanted to talk with you. He leaned forward. Barbara, I've asked around. Everyone in the Chandler dental community knows you're the one who really built Desert Bloom. Dr. Hughes was an excellent dentist, but you created the experience that kept patients coming back. I felt my cheeks warm at the unexpected praise. We were a team you coordinated, he insisted. I'd like to propose a partnership of sorts. I have the clinical skills and some capital, but I need someone who understands how to build and maintain a thriving practice. He paused, watching my reaction carefully. Someone like you. I blinked, surprised by the directness of his offer. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you equity, he clarified. 20% ownership in the new practice, with a salary comparable to what you were making before the cut. I don't just need an office manager, I need a partner. The idea was simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. After 18 years of security, the thought of starting fresh made my stomach tighten with anxiety. Yet beneath that fear was something else. Something that felt remarkably like hope. I don't know, Dr. Fuller. Starting a new practice from scratch. Not from scratch, he interrupted gently. With your experience and community connections, with your understanding of what patients in this area need and want. He stirred my coffee, considering his words. Southwest Dental would see it as direct competition. His smile contained a hint of challenge. They should. Dinner with Catherine, you're considering what? My daughter Catherine stared at me across our kitchen table, her fork suspended midway to her mouth. At 28, she had inherited my practicality and caution, which made her reaction to my news entirely predictable. Opening a new dental practice with Dr. Fuller, I repeated, trying to sound more confident than I felt. As a partner, not just an employee. Mom, you've worked at Desert Bloom for nearly 2 decades. You're talking about competing directly against your former employer. Isn't that, I don't know, risky? I poured more iced tea into our glasses, buying time to organize my thoughts. Our Sunday dinners had always been a safe space for honest conversation, and I needed that now more than ever. It's definitely risky, I acknowledged. But staying at Desert Bloom means accepting that my 18 years of service are worth 30% less than they were 3 months ago. Catherine's expression softened. I get that it's insulting, but starting a business at 50 next door to your current workplace. That seems extreme, even for you. I smiled. Even for predictable, play it safe, Barbara. The irony wasn't lost on me. After her father left, I'd spent years making safe, careful choices. Our modest home was nearly paid off. My retirement account was growing steadily. I'd established a comfortable, if not exciting, life. Do you remember when Grandma moved in with us after Grandpa died? I asked. Catherine nodded, her expression softening at the memory. She told me something I never forgot. She said, Barbara, I spent 40 years being sensible. Don't wait until you're my age to realize that sensible doesn't keep you warm at night. My mother had been a teacher who deferred her own dreams to support my father's career. When he died suddenly at 62, she found herself with savings but no fulfillment. She'd spent her last years urging me not to make the same mistake. I'd been doing some research, I said, pulling a folder from the sideboard drawer. Dar Fuller has excellent credentials and a solid reputation. The location is perfect. Patients wouldn't even have to change their driving route. I opened the folder to reveal spreadsheets I'd spent the weekend creating. Even with conservative estimates for patient transfer, we could be profitable within 9 months. Catherine raised an eyebrow, impressed despite herself. You've really thought this through. I have, I admitted. But there's something else. I took a deep breath. This isn't just about money, Catherine. It's about standing up for myself for the first time in a very long time. The resignation. The following morning, I requested a meeting with Austin and Melissa. They seemed surprised by my calm demeanor as I settled into a chair across from them. I've reviewed your compensation adjustment proposal, I began, using their corporate terminology. Unfortunately, I won't be accepting the new terms. Austin's relief was visible. I'm glad you're being reasonable, Barbara. The transition will be much smoother with your cooperation. I think you misunderstand, I interrupted gently. I'm not accepting the terms because I'm resigning. The stunned silence that followed gave me a small, satisfying glimpse of what was to come. Austin's face drained of color, and Melissa's perfect composure cracked for the first time since I'd met her. Resigning? Where would you go? You've been here your entire career. Melissa recovered first. I'll be helping establish a new dental practice, I replied simply. Austin's expression darkened. Barbara, I remind you that your employment contract includes a non-compete clause. I smiled, feeling oddly liberated. I reviewed that with an attorney yesterday. The clause was in Dr. Hughes's original contract, but the terms weren't transferred properly when Southwest Dental took over. It's unenforceable. This wasn't entirely accurate. There was some legal gray area, but the momentary panic on their faces was worth the small deception. Austin, I'd learned from office gossip, had been brought in specifically to reduce costs at recently acquired practices. His bonus structure was tied directly to how much money he could squeeze from each location. Melissa had been fast-tracked through the corporate management program, with Desert Bloom being her first solo assignment. Neither had any actual dental experience. They'd never held a patient's hand through a difficult procedure or remembered a child's birthday. You can't seriously be considering competing against us, Melissa said. After everything this practice has done for you. Everything this practice has done for me? I repeated, my voice finally betraying a hint of the anger I'd been suppressing. I built this practice. I'm not competing against Desert Bloom. I'm reclaiming what I helped create. As I stood to leave, Austin's voice took on a threatening edge. The corporate office won't take this lightly. They have resources you can't imagine. I paused at the door. And I have relationships you can't replace. Building Sunridge. The next 3 weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. I worked my notice period at Desert Bloom with scrupulous professionalism, training my replacement, a nervous 24-year-old named Jennifer with a business degree but no dental experience, while simultaneously helping Dr. Fuller secure the lease on the adjacent office space. The irony wasn't lost on me. During the day, I maintained Desert Bloom's scheduling system and patient records. In the evenings, I designed a competing system for what would become Sunridge Family Dental. I was living a double life, and it was exhilarating. At night, I'd sometimes lie awake wondering if I was making the biggest mistake of my life. What if patients didn't follow me? What if Austin and Melissa found a legal loophole to shut us down? What if, at 50, I was simply too old to reinvent myself? Then I'd remember my mother's words about regret and Catherine's grudging admiration when she saw my business plan, and I'd find the courage to continue. My final day at Desert Bloom arrived with little fanfare. Austin and Melissa had grown increasingly cold as my departure approached, minimizing their interactions with me. The staff, sensing the tension, had organized a small farewell gathering during lunch. We'll miss you, Barbara, Jessica said, handing me a card signed by everyone. It won't be the same without you. I hugged her tightly. I'll miss all of you too. I hesitated, then added carefully, if any of you ever need anything, I'm not going far. Later, as I packed the personal items from my desk, Melissa appeared in my doorway. Barbara, I hope you understand this was never personal, she said, attempting a conciliatory tone. The compensation adjustments were based on corporate guidelines. I looked up from the box of family photos and thank you cards I'd accumulated over 18 years. That's the problem, Melissa. Dentistry is inherently personal. These aren't just patient files. They're people who've trusted us with their health, their fears, and their families for years. She sighed. The dental landscape is changing. Small practices can't compete with corporate efficiency and purchasing power. Whatever you're planning, it won't work. I closed the box and stood. Perhaps. But I'm not trying to compete with corporate dentistry. I'm simply offering an alternative. As I carried my belongings to my car, I spotted Mrs. Wilson, the 82-year-old patient who faithfully brought cookies every Friday, struggling with the new automatic doors that had replaced our manual ones. "Let me help you," I said, setting down my box to assist her. "Oh, Barbara, thank goodness," she said, patting my arm gratefully. "Everything's changing so quickly around here. First those uncomfortable new chairs, then that complicated check-in computer." She lowered her voice. "And they told me they're discontinuing the emergency senior appointments. What am I supposed to do if my bridge comes loose on a weekend?" I helped her inside, feeling a fresh surge of determination. "Actually, Mrs. Wilson, I'm making some changes myself. May I call you next week to tell you about them?" Opening day. "This is unprecedented," Dr. Fuller said as we reviewed the day's numbers. "I've never seen a new practice generate this kind of immediate response." I smiled, thinking of the 18 years of relationships that had created this moment. It's not about the practice, it's about trust. From my new office, I could see directly into Desert Bloom's waiting room, now conspicuously empty. Throughout the day, I'd spotted Melissa watching our bustling reception area, her expression growing increasingly concerned. Opening day at Sunridge Family Dental had exceeded even my most optimistic projections. We had scheduled 20 patient appointments, a reasonable number for a first day of operations, but the waiting room was consistently full as people dropped by to see the new office and welcome me to my new role. By lunchtime, we had scheduled 47 additional appointments for the coming weeks. By day's end, that number had risen to 83. At 5 p.m., Jennifer, my replacement at Desert Bloom, appeared at our front desk looking nervous. "Hi, Barbara," she said hesitantly. "I was wondering, do you need another administrative assistant? They're talking about letting me go. Apparently, the patient's schedule is underperforming expectations." I felt a twinge of sympathy for her, 3 weeks into the job. "Is Austin blaming you for the patient exodus?" She nodded miserably. "He says it's my fault for not maintaining patient retention, but they keep changing the systems and cutting appointment times. Mrs. Wilson yelled at me yesterday when I told her we couldn't accommodate her emergency visit." I thought for a moment. We hadn't budgeted for additional administrative staff yet, but Jennifer deserved better than being scapegoated for Austin and Melissa's failures. "We can start you part-time," I offered, "with the possibility of full-time as we grow." The relief on her face made any financial strain worth it. "Thank you, Barbara. I promise I'll work hard." As Jennifer left, Jessica approached with another stack of records transfer requests. 39 more today," she reported. "At this rate, we'll have half of Desert Bloom's patients by the end of the month." I picked up the stack, each form representing a person who had chosen to follow me rather than remain with the practice that had decided I was expendable. "It's not about revenge," I said, though the satisfaction I felt suggested otherwise. "It's about building something better." But watching Melissa's frustrated expression through the window, I couldn't deny the sweet sense of justice unfolding. Epilogue. 6 months later, 6 months after Sunridge Family Dental opened its doors, we had exceeded every benchmark in our business plan. What had begun as a risky venture had transformed into a thriving practice with over 2,000 patients, more than two-thirds of them transferred from Desert Bloom. The impact on our neighbor was impossible to ignore. Through the dental community grapevine, we heard that Southwest Dental Partners was considering selling the underperforming location. Austin had already been reassigned to another practice in Phoenix, and Melissa was desperately trying to rebuild patient relationships that had deteriorated under her management. One Tuesday afternoon, I looked up from my desk to see Melissa standing uncertainly in my office doorway. "Do you have a minute?" she asked, her usual confidence noticeably absent. "Of course," I replied, gesturing to the chair across from me. She sat down, hands fidgeting in her lap. I wanted to ask, "How did you do it? How did you build such patient loyalty?" The question seemed sincere, almost desperate. 18 years of treating people like people, not profit centers, I answered honestly. "There's no corporate template for that." Melissa nodded slowly. "I'm being transferred next week." The regional manager said Desert Bloom's performance decline is unprecedented in the company's history. I could have responded with satisfaction or smugness, but seeing her genuine distress, I felt an unexpected pang of empathy. I'm sorry it didn't work out. Don't be, she said, rising to leave. You proved your point. I just wish we had recognized your value before it was too late. As she walked away, I realized that the victory I'd been savoring wasn't about seeing Desert Bloom struggle. It was about creating a practice where both patients and staff could thrive. The revenge I'd sought had transformed into something more meaningful: validation. Over dinner that night, Catherine studied me with curious eyes. You seem different, Mom. Happier. I considered this as I refilled our water glasses. I am. For years, I defined myself by my loyalty to Desert Bloom. When that wasn't valued, I thought I'd lost part of my identity. I smiled, feeling the truth of my next words. But it turns out I didn't lose anything. I found something better: my own voice. Catherine raised her glass in a toast to finding your voice at 50. I clinked my glass against hers, thinking about the journey of the past year. From longtime employee to business owner, from taking directions to making decisions, to new beginnings at any age. Looking back at the path that had led me here, I realized that Austin and Melissa's attempt to diminish my worth had actually revealed my true value, not just to Desert Bloom, but to myself. Their business decision had become my personal awakening, and for that, I was strangely grateful. The 30% pay cut they tried to impose had led to a 100% transformation in how I value my own contributions. In the end, their purely business decision had taught me the most personal lesson of all. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't getting even. It's moving forward. And at 50, I'd finally learned to move in my own direction.